The Young and the Restless Tuesday, August 18th recap. Claire and Holden catch Kyle and Victoria together. The Young and the Restless YNR recap for Tuesday, August 18th reveals that Holden Novak, Nathan Owens, and Claire Newman, Haley Aaron, will walk in on Kyle Abbott, Michael Mueller, bonding with Victoria Newman, Amelie Hindley alone. Kane Ashby, Billy Flynn, will also make a promise about what he's willing to do for Lily Winters, Crystal Khalil, sake. At Jabot, Jack Abbott, Peter Bergman, will acknowledge that the Abbotts may rightfully own Chancellor, but he'll also seem like he'd prefer for all this to just go away. Kane will make it clear that he's willing to get ugly against Billy to protect Lily Winters' interests. Billy will eventually come strolling in and push Kane to back down since he legitimately owns Chancellor. When Billy wonders why Kane is there fighting Lily's battles for her, Kane will insist she's busy talking to Amanda Sinclair, Miss Hale Morgan, and the legal team about this flimsy case. Smug Billy will throw Kane a bone by giving him the same research and development job that Kane previously offered. Kane will refuse to take a handout or give up when it comes to this Chancellor fight. Billy will stand his ground and lash out when Jack doesn't stick up for him. Once Billy stomps off, Jack will admit to Kane that his sisters convinced him to stay out of this. Jack will understand that Kane and Lily are going to do what they have to do against Billy. That said, if John Abbott's, Jerry Douglas, name or reputation gets tarnished, Kane will have to answer to Jack. At Crimson Lights, Kyle will startle Victoria when he comes up behind her. After Kyle checks on Victoria and asks about Nick Newman, Joshua Morrow, he'll convince her to join him at a table. While Kyle and Victoria are bonding again, Claire and Holden will show up. There'll be some uncomfortable moments, but Claire will seem appreciative over Kyle and Jack supporting Victoria over Nick's ordeal. After Holden and Claire head out on the patio, they'll acknowledge the awkwardness of that encounter. Holden will also wonder if Victoria would prefer if Claire were still with Kyle. Claire will shut down that idea, since Victoria wants her to make her own choices. Next, Holden will tell Claire about the situation with Billy attempting to take over Chancellor and question his own future at the company. Back in the main dining area, Kyle will talk to Victoria about time healing all wounds and feelings fading when it comes to Claire. Even so, Victoria will assume it must be difficult seeing Claire with Holden. Kyle will argue that he's used to it and question Victoria about how she feels about Claire's relationship with Holden instead. When Billy pops up looking tense and distracted, Victoria will fear there's trouble on the horizon. Once Victoria realizes Kyle may have some knowledge of what's going on, he'll think it's best to stay out of it and avoid the fallout. On the patio, Billy will admit he wants Holden to stay on board as Chancellor, but he'll warn that Holden will need to pick a side. Holden could end up with nothing if he backs Lily, but Billy will act like Holden could run a company of his own someday if he sticks with him. Claire will be on hand as Holden considers all this on Tuesday's YNR episode and wonders why he should trust Billy. At the Shadow Room, Danny Romalotti, Michael Damian, will perform a song from his new album. So Christine Blair Romalotti, Laura Lee Bell, Michael Baldwin, Christian LeBlanc, and Lauren Fenmore Baldwin, Tracy Bregman, will all be delighted by the sneak peek. Danny will also reveal that he worked it out with Noah Newman, Lucas Adams, and now owns half of the club. It'll be Danny's way of proving that he's serious about sticking around and focusing on his life in Genoa City. The Young and the Restless spoilers say more surprises are coming up at the Shadow Room later this week. So stay tuned for any shocking news to come. Tuesday's episode of The Young and the Restless delivered an uncomfortable encounter, a dangerous business showdown, and several emotional choices that could reshape relationships in Genoa City. Claire Newman and Holden Novak found themselves walking in on Kyle Abbott and Victoria Newman, sharing an unexpectedly warm moment, while Billy Abbott continued pushing his fight over Chancellor to the breaking point. The episode also brought a major development for Danny Romalotti, who made it clear that he is no longer simply passing through Genoa City. By the end of the hour, multiple characters were facing decisions that could have consequences far beyond Tuesday's episode. Claire and Holden walk in on Kyle and Victoria. The biggest emotional surprise came at Crimson Lights, where Kyle approached Victoria and offered to listen as she struggled with everything happening in her family. Victoria was worried about Nick and his treatment, and Kyle genuinely seemed interested in supporting her rather than stirring up old Abbott-Newman conflicts. Victoria appreciated Kyle's unexpected kindness. Their conversation quickly took on a comfortable, almost familiar tone. Kyle reminded her that despite the complicated history between their families, people could still care about one another. Victoria even acknowledged that Kyle was proving to be a surprisingly good friend. That peaceful moment took an awkward turn when Claire and Holden arrived. Claire immediately noticed her mother sitting alone with her former boyfriend. Although she tried to keep her composure, the situation was clearly uncomfortable. She and Holden exchanged greetings with Kyle and Victoria before the conversation moved toward Nick and his ongoing ordeal. Claire ultimately recognized that Kyle was trying to support Victoria during a difficult time. Still, seeing Kyle and Victoria together was bound to stir complicated feelings. Later, Claire and Holden stepped onto the patio, where they acknowledged how strange the encounter had been. Holden wondered whether Victoria might secretly prefer Claire to still be with Kyle. Claire quickly dismissed that possibility. She insisted that her mother wanted her to make her own choices and would not try to dictate who she should love. But Kyle and Victoria had their own conversation about Claire. Kyle admitted that breakups were painful, but suggested that feelings eventually fade. Victoria, meanwhile, acknowledged that it must be difficult for Kyle to see Claire moving forward with Holden. Kyle turned the question around, asking Victoria how she felt about Claire's new relationship. Positive things to say about Holden. She saw that he cared about Claire and came from a good family. For the moment, there was no indication that Victoria was trying to interfere in Claire's life. Nevertheless, the emotional triangle remains complicated. Kyle may claim that he has moved on, but his conversation with Victoria suggests that Claire is still very much on his mind. Holden faces a dangerous choice. While Claire was dealing with the awkwardness surrounding Kyle and Victoria, Holden was pulled deeper into the Chancellor conflict. Billy approached Holden with a tempting offer. He wanted Holden to remain a Chancellor, but there was one major condition. Holden would have to choose a side. Billy made it clear that supporting Lily could jeopardize Holden's future. He tried to sell Holden on the idea that standing with him could eventually lead to greater opportunities, even suggesting that Holden could one day run a company of his own. The problem is that Holden does not seem comfortable being forced into a corporate war. Earlier, he admitted to Claire that he was exhausted by all the chaos, maneuvering and spying surrounding Chancellor. Part of him longs for something much simpler, a stable job without constantly having to wonder who is using him or what hidden agenda is operating behind the scenes. Claire encouraged him to think carefully before committing himself. That advice may prove important because Billy's offer comes with strings attached. Holden now has to decide whether loyalty, ambition, or self-preservation should guide his next move. Billy and Kane turn up the heat. The Chancellor battle also dominated the action at Jabot. Kane Ashby made it clear that he was prepared to fight Billy to protect Lily and her interests. Jack Abbott attempted to remain neutral, hoping the dispute could somehow be resolved without destroying the Abbott family. Billy, however, was in no mood for compromise. When he confronted Kane, Billy insisted that Chancellor belonged to the Abbotts and suggested that Kane accept a position in research and development as a way of ending the conflict. Kane refused to treat the offer as anything more than a handout. The confrontation became even more personal when Billy accused Jack of failing to support him. Billy stormed away, leaving Jack to explain that he had deliberately chosen to stay out of the battle. Jack did issue one important warning. If Kane or Lily damaged John Abbott's name or reputation in the process, Jack would not remain on the sidelines. That warning could become extremely important as the legal fight intensifies. Danny makes a major commitment. At the Shadow Room, Danny Romalotti had happier news. Danny performed a song from his new album for Christine Blair, Michael Baldwin, and Lauren Fenmore Baldwin before revealing his big announcement. He had purchased half of the club. The decision was about more than business. Danny wanted everyone to know that he was serious about staying in Genoa City and building a future there. He plans to continue writing and recording music, but he also wants the Shadow Room to become part of his new life. Christine was thrilled by the news, and the two shared a romantic moment after Danny made his announcement. Danny's decision could give him a stronger connection to Genoa City and potentially create an entirely new source of stories at the club. What comes next for Claire, Kyle, and Victoria? Tuesday's episode left Claire in an interesting position. She is moving forward with Holden, but Kyle's continued presence makes it difficult to completely close the door on the past. Meanwhile, Victoria appears determined to support her daughter rather than interfere in her romantic decisions. The more intriguing question is Kyle. His conversation with Victoria may have been innocent, but he clearly remains curious about Claire's relationship with Holden. If Kyle truly has moved on, why does he still need to know how Victoria feels about Claire's new romance? For now, Kyle and Victoria appear to be forming a friendship built around mutual concern for Nick and Claire. But in Genoa City, innocent conversations rarely remain innocent for long, and Claire may have just witnessed the beginning of something she never expected. With Holden now facing pressure from Billy, Kyle reconsidering his connection to Claire, and Victoria caught between supporting her daughter and navigating her own complicated relationships, the emotional fallout from Tuesday's episode is likely only beginning. Meanwhile, Kane's battle with Billy threatens to drag even more people into the Chancellor War, while Danny's investment in the Shadow Room opens another door for the residents of Genoa City. One thing is certain: nobody is standing on completely solid ground. And after Claire and Holden caught Kyle and Victoria together, the next move could change everything.